Well, hi, Cindy. Thanks for joining us here today. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thanks for asking.
We like to ask our guests about their journey into early education and childcare. Can you share a little bit about yours with us?
Absolutely. In 2006, I was interviewed by the Childcare Association of Louisiana to be their lobbyist. And they hired me to be their lobbyist. About a year later, they also um, asked me to be their executive director. So that was a much larger role administratively and leadership wise. Um, so when I started with the association, we had about 200 members of the child care organization. We now have over 3,000. So we have grown exponentially.
Yeah, that's pretty record growth. I had no idea that it was that large at this point. That's outstanding work. Um, so our topic today is how do you maintain a joyful mindset in your role, especially when facing the daily challenges of running a childcare operation?
Okay, I can answer that. I'm going to pull something up real quickly just to read because it's a little bit, I'm sure you can still see me, but I have a mentor who taught me define success. And that mentor's name is Mike Manus. And what he said is, you have to define your success or what success means to you. And if you don't have your own definition of success, you can use somebody else's. So that's exactly what I did. So there is a poem called That Man is a Success. It's attributed to different people. One is Robert Louis Stevenson, but this is my daily motto, what I achieve to do every day. That man is a success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and women and the love of children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who leaves the world a better place than he found it, whether by an improved poppy, a perfect poem, a rescued soul, who never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who looked for the best in others and gave the best he had. So that is the definition of success that I've adopted for myself. It's my motto. But on my day to day basis, I try to find joy in everything I do and every experience. Um, since the pandemic happened, I've had a lot of death in my family and friends. And there's been so many incidences recently where I've lost loved ones. And we have no promise of tomorrow. And I just think it's critically important as we go through our days to find joy in everything that we can try to do. So I have a mom. She's 80. She's 94. She lives in Nashville. She's in Lebanon, Tennessee, the home of Cracker Barrel, and she dances for at least 15 minutes every day. And I have no doubt
Wow.
that it is attributed to her longevity. But she taught us as children, you can make a decision every morning when you wake up. You can have a joyful day, you can have a happy existence, or you can be miserable. The choice is yours. So I think many people don't realize that our brains are like a computer. And if you lay in bed and before you put your feet on the ground, you program your brain for success and you tell your brain, no matter what comes my way, I've got this. I think that, people would execute their days maybe a little differently. At least that's the case for me.
Gosh, you just hit the nail on the head for me. I have heard that same analogy about our brains, and I can't recall who taught this to me, but it's all about the questions that you ask yourself in your mind, how you actually see or view your day. So if you ask yourself, what awful thing is going to happen today, likely something awful will happen today. But if you ask yourself, what's funny about today or what's exciting about today, you just start off with a different mindset, right? So I think we're talking really about how to utilize your mind to influence yourself towards success. So how would you advise if you were going to think about that piece of that concept, and when you're in discussions with childcare business owners, how could they maybe incorporate that into not only how they view their day, but maybe how they, teach children?
Oh, that's a great question. I grew up in New Orleans and my grandmother raised me for the first 6 years of my life. and she had to go to work. She was a short order cook, and she had dropped me off at my nursery school. I'm that old. They called it nursery schools, but there's still a lot of childcare centers that still call themselves nursery schools. And I
Mhm.
remember each one distinctly. But I've always thought that you never know what impact you're making on the life of a child. So as those childcare providers are greeting the children as they walk in the door and singing inspirational, motivational affirmations with them, you don't know. That may be the only positive affirmations or positivity that you don't know what's going on in a child's life, at home, really. And
So true.
um, you know, the, for a lot of kids, that warm hug or that greeting or that affirmation, believing them in themselves, you know, it goes back to that motto we talked: try to improve the world, make it a better place than we found it. When you're in the grocery store and you're saying hi to the person that's working behind the register and smile, the smile is free to give away. But they might have had some bad news when they went to work that day. They might have found out they've got a relative with a bad illness or disease. They might have been told they're getting divorced. So you never know what's going on in somebody's life, but especially for childcare providers, they have such a unique, wonderful opportunity to make an impact. The first 4 years of a child's life is most pivotal. 1100 days, 1120 days is when brain development occurs in the first 4 years of a child's life. So it's just those little synapses are popping and those little neuron networks, as they call them. And
Mhm.
it's just interesting to see. So there's a lot of opportunities for childcare providers to make a difference in that. By having this impact, that this may be the only positivity they get in their day.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true, and I think you're right. They have maybe they sometimes don't realize day by day because they're down in the trenches the impact that they are having. But I think if we could all just kind of see the world through the eyes of a child, we'd probably treat each other a little better. How can we as a community or as a culture here in America support early educators and help keep them inspired, energized, because they do such a tough job. And I think we often, just don't recognize how difficult it can be to deal with children, 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why the Childcare Association of Louisiana is so popular, because we don't just cater to owners, directors, assistant directors, we cater to the educators as well. And we're helping so many of them go back to school and get their education. We've got partnerships with Walden University. They give great discounts to our members to have to get back to classes, and there we work with the curriculum companies to help provide the instruction throughout the day. So I think as a community, we just need to recognize that the childcare industry is a profession in the same regard as K through 12. That and more so because of the brain development is so critically important that we give them the tools that they need. What I'd like to see is us be able to provide the salary and the reimburse, the compensation that they need too, because that's equally important. And we're working on some things in Louisiana to try to get those rates higher so that our staff can, stay and be um, part of the process of getting children kindergarten ready.
That is, that's wonderful. I love hearing that your association is actually supporting and actually in a way they're actually providing funding for and continuing education, because it is difficult to be working in a childcare center and to continue to invest in yourself to increase your education. So I love that you have a partnership with Walden. Why don't you share with us a little bit about the initiatives you're working on there in the state of Louisiana to help with the salaries and the benefits that our early educators need?
Well, we are constantly having meetings with policy makers and policy holders about this issue. The governor just hired a new education advisor, and our incoming president and I spent a lot of time with him a few weeks ago, just educating him on things that we can do together. Working also with the economic development folks. We have a new Secretary of Economic Development who truly understands the importance and the value of early childhood education. Recently, I was able to go to Washington, D.C. for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They had a business summit on early childhood education, and it was so wonderful because the room was filled to capacity. Over 1,200 people registered. There were governors from 3 states. There were business executives from like UPS and coffee companies and trucking companies and auto dealerships, and that understand that if that we need to invest in early childhood education for our employees. What the Childcare Association of Louisiana likes to say is that we, the childcare industry, are the backbone of economic development and workforce development. So, in order to be that backbone, yes, kids become kindergarten ready by being in a childcare center or the educational space, you know, with curriculums and structure and all of those things, play, that's very important too, structured play. But at the
Mhm.
same time, we're enabling moms and dads to either go back to work and further their education or have a full time job so that their children are in a safe, quality place at the same time.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more there. I do believe our entire economy depends on early care and education because no mom or dad is going to, leave and feel like they can be fully focused on their role or their job unless they know their children are well cared for. But it sounds to me like the governor of Louisiana has a fairly open door policy. Do you feel like the early education community there in Louisiana can approach the governor directly, or are the representatives very open to coming and visiting these schools?
Yeah, I came up with a great idea, and I'm going to do it. I'm just going to throw it out there, and if someone wants to steal it. But, our fall conference is all about literacy and moving the needle forward on improving the scores for literacy, especially for our youngest learners. So since we made our conference theme for fall literacy, I've been reaching out to all of these book authors, Louisiana children's book authors. And it would be nice if we not only featured these book authors, but we picked out several of these books that are written by Louisiana authors for pre K children and got the legislators to come into our childcare centers and read these books to children. They do that once a year to celebrate Dr. Seuss's birthday in March. Born the same
Mhm.
day as me, March 1st. But that's the focal point. It's just March for Dr. Seuss, where you can go read books. But I want to have this be a year round thing. And it would be nice to
God,
support our Louisiana children's authors by having legislators. Because if they go in a child care center, they're going to see this isn't babysitting. There's
that's right.
curriculums, there's degree teachers, there's all these policies and procedures in place to make sure there's safety and quality, there's star ratings. So I think it would be really important to have our legislators, and I think they'd be open to that. In the off season, they're always looking for things to do in their community to support the community. That's one of the things that I'm going to look to implement this fall.
Wow, that's an exciting initiative. And I love the idea of you bringing in, you know, actual authors of books in Louisiana, folks that are, near and dear to the community. And I think that's important for children to see that, hey, I too could grow into an author and become, world famous, even
Mm-hmm.
if I were a really good author.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's always good for kids to see our governors, our legislators, our different professional roles demonstrated to them, and they can see, well, these are just people too, just like me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think at an early age, you're onto something there. And I love the way that you've tied that together for your fall conference on literacy. I'm curious, how important would you say it is that you stay in collaboration and contact and connected with the other Childcare Association executive directors? Is there some way that you kind of incorporate this joyful mindset and resiliency in your role with them?
Absolutely. I spend a lot of my time interacting with others throughout the country on early childhood education, not just executive directors of other states, but foundations and those types of things as well. But we're having those discussions as to what we can do to help the childcare industry remain to be stable and to be sustainable, because a lot of people during the pandemic got um, real used to the money that we got, the ARPA grants. And now that the ARPA grant funding is gone, it's a mindset and it's a big adjustment to make those changes, to make sure that you're charging the right amount, make sure that you're doing everything that you can to help your business grow, to get enrollments up and all of that stuff. So that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time working on and talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the balance between raising your tuition rates to maintain your program and be able to pay and offset the cost of having high quality teachers is a real challenge in almost every state in the nation. And so finding that balance has got to be very difficult for the small business owner who knows that their services are very valuable, but families can't necessarily just continually increase what they invest in tuition as well. So it's a real challenge. What kinds of programs or initiatives are out there that the community should stay focused on and maybe support?
So it comes down to building those relationships with the legislators and getting our members to get to know them. And that's what I'm pushing real hard on right now, that advocacy is not just a session time thing, it's an all year time thing. So September is Grandparents' Day month. So invite legislators to come to your center for whatever activities you're having for Grandparents' Day, or throughout the year, just have some focal point where you're involving your policymakers. I really think that we can get to the point where we have the same success stories that some of these other states are having, where their governor really gets it. And our governor does get early childhood education. He appropriated, he put in his executive budget that came out in February, $87.7 million for early childhood education. And we were able to maintain most of that throughout the legislative process. I think we came up about $7 million short, but there's such a tremendous need. And it's just those relationships you build one at a time, and it's something that takes time.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. Let's talk a little bit further, go a little deeper on what are the things if I'm running a childcare business or preschool program in Louisiana. Oftentimes when I speak with these owners, they tend to get drawn into the classroom, they get drawn into all of the day-to-day operating procedures, tasks, things that they need to get done. How can the association perhaps maybe, give them some quick tips, tools, templates for letter writing, templates for messaging to the governor and or their legislative branch or representative? Is maybe you already offer it, I don't know, but if you do, I would love to hear your thoughts on how do we help these owners and directors and educators have the time and space to do some of these
Mhm.
things.
Well, when you're dealing with legislators and we're in session, you get all of a few minutes to get your point across. So we send out templates to our members during session with this is who to call and this is what to say. And I believe in generating phone calls is the most important thing. I don't think legislators pay as much attention to getting the same email over and over and over again. That's just like a template. So I steer away from that. But if people can call and put a face behind their center and their operation, that I live in your district, um, you know, Desiree Planter with ABC Childcare. This is what's important to us. We have a lot of children in our area that need childcare assistance because they can't afford childcare, and we need some more state investment in early childhood education. So we're able to help them a lot on that during session with the messaging and who to call and when to call and what to say. This fall, we will also be having road shows throughout the state where we visit our childcare providers, and we have legislators come to those events as well to interact with us and hear what are the challenges we're facing and what can they do to help us. So I think some people are intimidated initially by their legislators, but we feature them a lot on our Zoom calls once a week, or we feature them at our events that we have throughout the state or at our conferences. So we're trying to break that um, mindset that legislators are unapproachable or to be feared, because we educate everybody that they're everyday citizens like me and you. They just decide they want to make a difference and they run for public office, and they put themselves out there to do that.
Yeah, and it's a tough job because they also have to balance a number of different requests and initiatives from differing industries with differing agendas. But I want to go back to something you said that really harkened to me um, when you were describing that, sending an email can feel very impersonal and very much like, oh, I'm just copying and pasting a template. We're making a phone call, and that person hearing your personal story likely has a bigger impact. It reminds me of an initiative that I was involved in years ago about take a picture, tell a story. So I think you're on to something there, and I think if we can help the Louisiana providers tell their own story, how are these laws and changes, regulations, and lack of funding affecting their business on a personal level? I think that goes a long way.
Well, I had the good luck to go to a university in New Orleans who taught us, their motto was, tell me and I'll hear, show me and I'll see, involve me and I'll understand. And that's why we try so hard to get our providers to get the legislators into their center. When we had elections last year, I beat the doors. I beat on all the doors to say, hey, you running for office? Here's a one pager that talks all about early childhood education. It's a cheat sheet. Take it with you. And when you're looking for something to say, it's at the very top. The first 4 years of a child's life is the most pivotal. Brain development happens in the first 1120 days. Um, you just all the statistics that we have available to them about the importance of early childhood education, the economic impact of early childhood education. So by having so many of our members volunteer to showcase their center during those elections, and even if that person didn't win, they may go on to be a city councilman. They might be go on to be a mayor. They probably will stay in politics and pop up somewhere sometime, but they'll have a better education of early childhood education. So we continue that throughout the year in promoting legislator legislative visits at childcare centers.
I
So,
love that. I really would not have thought about that, but you're right. If they run for office and they don't win, what
mhm,
happens? Where do they go? You're right. They probably land on a school board or a city council. So
mhm,
that's really a good way for us to think about building long-term relationships because they may run again, right?
absolutely.
I think you have offered some really valuable insights and just easy tips too. Like, I already feel like I could make a call to my legislator and tell my story. You just gave me 3 to 4 different ways to do it and things that I could invite them to. I think that's really important. And I think that's what makes Louisiana's association so valuable to this part of the community here. So at the end of every podcast, we try to ask people some things like, if we're looking forward in the early education sector here in the United States, what do you see as some of the big challenges that the sector is facing over the next few years?
The childcare industry or other sectors
Mhm.
or all?
Nope, the childcare industry.
Yeah, well, staffing is one of the biggest things that we hear. I don't know what happened post COVID, but I see it with students. There's many students who started off their college career watching Zoom videos of their classes. And then now that they have to go to school actually and interact with their professor face to face, it's not something that's comfortable to them because that's not how they started off. That's not how they knew college to start off. So that's shocking in itself because college is such a great way to meet a lot of people, professors, students, otherwise, and kind of find out who you are and what do you want to do. But when you
Mhm.
look at the childcare industry, childcare providers were deemed to be essential workers, which means they have to go to work. We're not going to require them to stay at home. They can't. We can't have an industry if you're going to make childcare providers stay home. So we were able to get us the childcare employees designated as essential providers, and I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't know the phenomena, but I hear it from a lot of businesses that they have such great difficulty retaining staff. And I think it's just a
Mhm.
mindset that's we can blame on the COVID, the coronavirus pandemic for, you know,
Mhm.
um, so that is one of the biggest things that I see that employees um, don't stay for the long haul. That's why we're doing so much in the Childcare Association of Louisiana to build partnerships with people that we can offer benefits. We had an orientation today with our members, our new members, and talked to them about here's a vendor that we have that they'll help you buy group health insurance.
Wow.
Here's a vendor that we have that'll help you buy property and casualty. Here's one that will help you go back to school with Walden University. So, as much that we can do to offer membership benefits to childcare employees or educators so that we keep them in the workforce doing something that's so incredibly important to children, that's I think that's the key to success right there.
Yeah, yeah. And staff retention is one of those things that it impacts every industry because the cost of high turnover rates, bringing an employee onto your program as an employee and then having to train them and invest in them only for them to walk out the door is so very costly. So thinking about how do I retain my employees? How do I make a environment and an engaging place to work so that people want to show up and go to work, right? So, do you have any thoughts on strategies? Like, I'm hearing a lot of things about offering, so folks are putting together coffee bars or they're barbecuing in the parking lot for employees on a Friday afternoon. Any thoughts about how that might be incorporated in Louisiana, or maybe you have some examples you could share?
Well, I am not an owner of a childcare association, so I mean a childcare center. So it's hard for me to say what I think would work or not work, but something cool is going
Mhm.
on right now. Our legislative chairman is in Orange Beach, Alabama, with a lot of his key staff on a retreat, but they're taking boat rides in the evening and they're doing uh, team building in the day and strategic planning, and everybody's writing him on Facebook saying, "Can I come work for your center?" They are like a family. So the lady who runs his operation, she said, "I truly like making our employees feel like they're part of our family." And I think what he's doing is phenomenal. And I think a lot of our members, owner directors, try to do those kind of things to make their employees feel like they're part of a family, something bigger, that we're a team and we all have to rely on each other. So I think that's critically important.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect idea, right? Everyone wants to, or every human
Mm-hmm.
has the need to feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a basic human need. So if you can fulfill that human need in your employment, right? If you can get that feeling through going to work as being part of something larger than yourself and having impact, you're much more likely to feel like getting up in the morning than, you might otherwise. So I think you articulated that really, really well. As we finish up here today, we like to ask our podcast guests for a personal motto, motivational quote, or anything that they'd like to share with the listeners. And my gosh, your motivational poem and motto, it just, such an inspiring one. I almost feel like we should change up this question, but is
Mm-hmm.
there anything else that you'd like to share with us in the way to just inspire the audience?
Well, Oprah Winfrey is somebody who I love. She started from humble beginnings, and she self-made woman, and she had a lot of adversity in her life. I know that. But there's a quote that I couldn't recite it exactly, but it talks about how everything starts with an intention. Everything starts with an intention. When you get up in the morning, like I said, you can program your brain for success and say, before my head hits the pillow again tonight, this is what I want to accomplish. If I don't get through all of that, fine. If I see somebody who needs a smile, I'm going to give it to them because smiles are free. I'm going to be cheerful. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be joyful. I'm going to avoid drama. I'm going to avoid negative people. And, I just want to reiterate one more time. It's probably going to, that man is a success that leaves the world that it says that man or woman is successful who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and women and the love of children. Wow. Children are incredible that they have no judgment. They love you. They don't see boundaries, they don't see colors, they just love you. And then
Mhm.
it goes on to say, who has filled their niche and accomplished their task, who leaves the world a better place than they found it, whether through an improved poppy or a rescued soul, and who never lacks appreciation of Earth's beauty and looks for the best in others. I mean, I can't sum it up any better than that. Every day of my life, that's my motto. That
Well, I
is my
think that's a
definition.
wonderful
If
one.
I put my head on my pillow and I've been able to make somebody laugh that day or smile that day or do something positive, I've won the day.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, absolutely. And being kind and showing love and smiling, like you said, it's free of charge. Didn't cost us anything. And it's amazing to me how a little true appreciation, genuine appreciation for another human being can be all it takes.
Absolutely.
Well, Cindy, I am so blessed to have you in my life and to know you. I'm so glad that we're connected. I look forward to continuing to have dialogue with you and find ways that we can work together to support the industry that we both love so much. And thank you for sharing some of these really great tips for what folks can do in Louisiana specifically to get involved in the association, to benefit from the association, and to reach out and advocate on their own behalf, pull their chair up to the table, as we might say, with your governor and legislators. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate our friendship and working with you too. And I love collaboration. So if any of the podcast viewers see this and want to collaborate, they can go to the Childcare Association of Louisiana website and find all my contact information. So thank you for having me as your guest today.
Oh, you're very welcome. She's the quickest to respond to any message she ever gets. I don't know how she does it, but I just want to throw that out there. Cindy will get back to you right away.
Thank you.
You're welcome.